This is an Irreverent podcast. Check out irreverent.fm for shows from all our friends.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an Enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. Start converting your B2B audience today. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started today at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I have an interview coming up in just a moment with Jenny Booth Potter. She is a resident of the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, and I had her on the show back in 2022. We had been talking before we hit record, and I sort of go into a rambling bit of introduction prior to her talking about her experience. She had a video go viral a few weeks ago about what's still happening in Minneapolis-St. Paul, even though the headlines and everything have seemingly moved on. This is a great conversation, and I hope you get some encouragement from it. Here it is. Hello, and welcome back to the show. I have a return guest with me, Jenny Booth Potter. She is the author of Doing Nothing is No Longer an Option, One Woman's Journey into Everyday Anti-Racism. She joined the show back in 2022, and she is actually now a Minneapolis area resident, and that's what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk today, not necessarily about Christian nationalism or anything like that, but about what has happened in Minneapolis and what's happening still. And just for the listener, if you weren't already inundated with news earlier this year about what had happened in Minneapolis, back on January 7th, Renee Nicole Good was killed by ICE. Liam Ramos was detained by ICE along with his family on January 20th. On January 24th, Alex Preddy was killed, and then Greg Bovino was fired from his post on January 26th, 2026. Jenny published a reel on Instagram back on February 9th, highlighting how things had continued to develop in Minneapolis. So Minneapolis is still experiencing a lot of turmoil. But Jenny, with that long preamble, welcome back to the show. What can you share about what life in Minneapolis is, in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, is like today?
Yeah. Hi, Blake.
Hi.
I think it feels it feels incredibly hard to name because there's so much anticipated violence that I think that so many of us are walking around, driving around, just on edge, on alert to witness. And so in January, when things started really escalating, it became really hard for me to even drive safely because I felt like I was just scanning for ICE all the time. And it became this very bizarre instinct to just be on alert. And I've left the state a few times since January, and it always is very bizarre for me to kind of have a moment of realization that I'm not checking that I have my whistle in my pocket. I'm not checking to make sure that my phone is fully charged in case I need to record something. I'm not checking my signal messages, every hour just to make sure I'm not missing anything. I'm not scanning the roads for ICE vehicles or for indications that that there's like activity. And so it truly does feel like I would say it like a permanent level of anxiety of just feeling the stress of both grieving what has happened and then also anticipating more. And So that's like one aspect. And that you can't fully rely on. Like, you don't know where, it's not like there's some great plan that ICE is following. Like, it's so, feels like whack-a-mole. It just feels like they spring up and it always catches you by surprise where they are. And, but I think something that I really want to make sure people also understand is what I am seeing so consistently that's almost like could bring me to tears is the unified response from the communities here, where people are standing up and not cowering in fear, and they are continuing to resist. I don't remember exactly when my third graders elementary school started signups for watch duty, for, you know, kind of being at the school during drop off and pickup. But I'm almost positive it was in the window after Renee Good was murdered and Alex Preddy was murdered. And I really thought what I was going to see was those shifts start getting missed and harder to replace. And I can't drive by a daycare in my neighborhood that doesn't have parents outside standing watch, especially if it's a Spanish immersion daycare. And I really thought I was going to see fear overtake courage. And I haven't. Like, I almost daily am driving by schools and hospitals and street corners and daycares where people are out walking, wearing their whistles, protest signs. You almost can't even, like, I was at the doctor yesterday morning and the woman and I we were talking about ways we were trying to help our community. Like, it is growing up in a space where the church was so obsessed with this idea of unity. I have never seen it rooted in love the way that I have in St. Paul and in Minneapolis these past 2 months. And that has truly, completely, like, it's like changing my insides. I don't know. It is truly to watch ordinary people come together so bravely and so consistently and in such seemingly small, ordinary ways. It really is overwhelming. And in some ways, like, almost more overwhelming than the stupid tactics of our government. And so I think that's what I've been really blown away by is not the scary headlines, but it is these ordinary, like, I often will Marco Polo friends in my car and I will be like, oh, like, like at first it was like anytime I saw a siren, I would have almost a trauma response. And now what's happening is I'm like, oh, sorry, I'm going to honk my horn because there's protesters and I want to, like, support them. You know, like, that's happening just every day. You can't believe how united people are in our resistance and our love for our neighbors. It is so powerful. And I think that's a lot of what I was trying to communicate in this video that I posted a couple weeks ago of the risks that people are willing to take and how there is something about knowing that people are watching that makes the work feel less scary. It makes the resistance feel less scary if it feels like eyes beyond just Minnesota are watching. But I have been blown away at the continued resistance that people here aren't wavering. It's the conversations that we're having in my family with my husband and I is how do we make sure that our resistance is sustainable? Like, those are so many of the conversations. And I mean, it really does feel like an example of courage being contagious. And that's really what I'm witnessing.
Yeah. Do you feel like, I mean, it sounds like this is making people resilient in a different sort of way. That's not to negate or deny the traumatic and upsetting aspects of what it's like to live like this, but it also sounds as if that like you almost sound surprised that like that it has been sustained. It continues, and but it's just surprised in a really good way. Like you're stronger than you think.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially, I keep asking so many people that live in the Twin Cities that were here in the 2020 uprising after George Floyd was murdered. Like, how much do you think that laid the groundwork for the organizing, for the resistance, for the mobilization, for mutual aid funds to already be existence? And I think it's so much we're standing on like the strong foundation that was laid after that period.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm partially surprised because I am seeing so many white people showing up. I'm seeing so many white people putting their bodies really on the line. I mean, the two people that we mentioned, the two Minnesotans that were murdered by ICE, were two white people. And so I think a lot of times activism can be so easy to talk about and so easy to share your beliefs. Like, of course I, believe in due process. And of course I believe in the Constitution and whatever. But to actually see so many people really risking, like, we don't know at any moment you could be in a situation where you're with people that have impunity, and they can do whatever they want. And for people to keep coming out and keep saying, no, 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 like, we have to outlast that is really, really, yeah, it's really, really powerful. And it's really hard to do when you're doing it by yourself. Like nobody's doing this by themselves. I think that's what I keep coming back to as well, is I think in a lot of like white evangelicalism, we have this like, there's going to be a savior. Well, there's no savior of this. There's no savior. It's, after we get off this, my husband and I are going to go do the afternoon pickup shift at my son's elementary school. And on Sunday, we'll go to church and bring supplies for our church's pantry. And we're trying to take our grocery budget this month, and like any money that we have extra, we're trying to make sure we're donating that to mutual aid. So there's just like, it's such a beautiful example of community and of small acts of resistance adding up, that there is no like sweeping savior. I do want to comment something that I feel like I've heard so many people when I posted this reel. I think one of the things that hooked people was I shared a story of speaking to someone that is hiding people in their home to keep them safe from ICE. And I shared that story because, one, I'd been kind of waiting for that moment. I'd been wondering, like, people must be doing this. Like, people must be doing this. So to have that confirmed was sobering and also not surprising. And what I heard from so many people after I shared that story of like, we're at the point where people are hiding other people in their basements. Like, we are at this moment. This is, you read about this in history books moment. And what I heard from so many people was, I'm not hearing anything anymore. I'm not seeing any more videos coming from Minnesota. You're the first video I've seen in 2 weeks. Like, why am I not seeing anything? Why am I not seeing anything? Why am I not seeing anything? And I was thinking about, I mean, there's so many reasons, but I do feel like when you understand a couple of things, or what I'm trying to make sense of, when it like, I'm not the first person to have this epiphany, but I'm like, oh, like Trump is like a reality TV producer. And so what he wanted when ICE came to Minnesota to like, put these progressives in place, because it wasn't actually about immigration, as we all like. I think Minnesota is like 27th on the list of states when it comes to like population by immigration size. So like, why is he sending ICE here? Why are they coming in such loud, honestly, like filmable ways where they're dressed up and it's dramatic and it's being filmed? It's like, well, it's because he's a like reality TV show executive and it's gonna make, exciting content. And that was even something that I'd read, that he was literally like, the reason that the guy that shot and killed Renee Good had a phone in his hand was because they'd been getting orders to be creating content of ICE, getting rid of the worst of the worst. And so they were being given instruction to be capturing content.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously that like blows up in Trump's face. And the majority, I think it's like 54% of Americans feel like he's gone too far with what ICE is doing. I have a 11-year-old that is obsessed with Hamilton, and I just keep thinking about songs from Hamilton about the battle between like the Redcoats, the British, and like, the 13 colonies, the American resistance. And I feel like Trump really brought ICE in like Redcoats, like, look at them, like, we're gonna, kind of do our thing, and we're so big. And now I feel like they've flipped. And so the reason people aren't seeing things is because they're not out there wearing their fatigues and their, red coat regalia. They're now being covert. And so why we're not seeing things is because it's harder to catch them. Like, they are now, there's been a lot of footage that's helped people understand who ICE is even sending out into Minnesota right now. Is not a bunch of like white middle-aged dudes in fatigues. It's a lot of like men and women of color that are going out. Their tactics are totally changing, where they are trying to go more out to the suburbs where there is less, where it's, St. Paul, Minneapolis, like, these are neighborhoods with sidewalks, and there's not the sprawl of like a suburban community. Like, you can get places in the Twin Cities like that. And so they're sprawling out. They're being incredibly disgustingly deceptive. They're literally following volunteers who are giving food. Like, if let's say your family signs up to receive food, well, now those volunteers that are giving food to these families are being tailed by ICE. Sometimes ICE is impersonating people, pretending that they're food delivery, they're part of like a community group dropping off groceries. There's just all these like,
vile.
Yeah. I mean, there was a story I heard of a man who, a woman knocked on his door, said she was having car trouble. He's a father of, I think, 4 or 6 kids. He's been in the country, I think, over 20 years. He answers the door, goes outside to help her. She's an ICE agent. Within 30 seconds, ICE swarms in, they detain him. And I heard a quote from his son saying, like, my dad, like, this does not surprise me. My dad would help anyone. And so I literally have been like wondering lately, like, does the church talk about the Good Samaritan anymore? Like, is that story, are we like we're not talking, do we not teach that parable anymore? Is that woke? I don't know. I keep thinking about these stories where if you are like, yay, ICE, way to trick that father of 6 by claiming that someone has car trouble and get them out of this community. Like, what is wrong with you? I just, it feels so like good versus evil. It just feels so clear right now. Yeah, but I think that's why people think things aren't as bad because they're not
the optics have
15
changed.
cameras on a situation. They put their red coats away and they're going undercover. And that is in so many ways is even scarier. And so what you're still seeing from so many people who are citizens, people who have asylum cases, people who, for whatever reason, people who are just people of color are hiding because because the risk is still too great.
Yeah.
And so I think that's like the importance of providing funding for paying people's rent. Like it would be really great if our government officials, if the mayor of Minneapolis, the mayor of St. Paul could put a rent moratorium right now, like that nobody would be evicted. That has not happened, which is very upsetting. So people cannot go to work. They're not sending their kids to school. Like my kids they're in St. Paul public schools, and both their elementary and middle school and high schools are all offering e-learning. And so kids are not able to go to school. There's kids that are staying inside. Just because the videos aren't being captured doesn't mean that the like trauma and the lingering effects are still there for so many people right now who have already probably been through so much other trauma. Like it is just so reckless and cruel and terrible. And that's just what's happening in Minnesota. Meanwhile, when people are sent to detention centers, that's like a whole other
Right. Yeah.
trauma and health. Yeah.
It's one crisis amongst many.
Right.
Like, yeah, absolutely.
So I think people here are understanding the best way to keep people safe is how do you keep them from even being detained, you know? And so that's why so many people are hiding out. That's why so many people are having to accept grocery deliveries and accept rent assistance and not send their kids to school, because when we're at a point where our government is using children as bait, like what else are they capable of doing? Right. So yeah, I think that's what I want to highlight. Like it hasn't gotten better. It's just gotten more sinisterly evil. And I'm so proud of the ways that people are continuing to show up in my state.
Yeah. Yeah. What struck me about your video that did do numbers. I mean, it's been viewed millions of times.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you are a comms professional. Like you work in communications. Right?
Yes, I didn't mean to laugh at that. Yes.
But you absolutely are, and that's been part of your career. So many of your comments have been about the optics changing and how that's led people from not being as aware that this continues to happen, just because we've gotten so just acclimated to things being pushed to us. You know, like things like Instagram and TikTok, like the videos just play.
Right.
We don't, most of the time we don't select them anymore, right? We don't seek out the news in the same sort of way. And that also means that our that's one very insidious way of our media ecosystem just being so fractured. And some people don't even see your video that got seen millions of times. So like, what would you want people who made, and there's no guarantee that they'll hear this either.
No, they will. They will, Blake.
But what would you want people who might be seeing right-wing influencers' views of Minneapolis, like, or seeing nothing at all, like what would you want to communicate to them, because they're getting a very different lens than you as someone with young children, that you're just also, you're trying to live your life, and you're also trying to help your community in distress. Like, there's so much going on, just to your point. Like, there's so many simultaneous crises that it's hard for us to hold on a given day. But people in Minneapolis and in other places like Chicago and Portland and all these other regions that are also being targeted by ICE, they're also living this. So, but to those people that if you had an opportunity to highlight something for those people that may not be receiving those images at all, like how would you like to speak to them, or what would you want to highlight for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I when I sat in my car and recorded that video and I was like, bring your eyes back to the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
I wasn't saying that in like, what's wrong with you people? I totally get it, that it is really hard to sustain a level of distance proximity. Like if it's not in your backyard, I totally understand how you're at the mercy of media, whether that's news, whether that's, people on the ground here, wherever. And so I want to just say, like, we are all human beings doing the best that we can. I'm going to assume that anybody listening right now is cares about other people, has a clear understanding of right and wrong, understands that what is happening is not only inhumane, it's dehumanizing. And honestly, in some ways, it's the same conversations that I'm having with this happening in my backyard, which is, what do we need to do to make our resistance sustainable? And so if signing up for NPR, like follow local Minnesota-based news sources. So NPR is our version of NPR because we have to be special. So it's Minnesota Public Radio. Follow our PBS station. Follow the Star Tribune. Like, follow those accounts. Go there. But yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to make this, like, if you care about what's happening in Minnesota and you want to give to Minnesota, there are so many ways to do that. And what I would encourage people to do is put things on, like, become a recurring donor of an immigration organization that's in Minnesota. Become a recurring donor of like a mutual aid distributor. Do it once and then just like automate it so you don't have to think about it over and over again. If that's what you want to do, if you were able to give financially. But my whole angle of my life has been trying to live out this vow I made when I was 20, which is doing nothing is no longer an option for me. And so I would just say to people, like, just don't do nothing. And I kind of don't care what the not nothing is, because when you do anything, it becomes there's an energy, right? Like, I think activism creates momentum. It creates energy, and that can be big or small. I feel like a lot of times we're in these activist circles or just trying to care, it's like so much of our energy is around how we're not doing enough, or it's going after the people that hardcore disagree with us. And so I would love to extend the permission slip that you don't need to beat yourself up. Nobody is doing enough. Nobody. I guarantee there are people that are getting like arrested or that are getting, why can't I think of what's that called? What's it called? Like when you're sprayed,
Pepper sprayed.
pepper sprayed, that are like, I'm not doing enough. Like, so just release yourself of that and just say, but I can do something. What's my something that I can do? And I think one of the things that has almost not taken me out, but really upset me was the silence from people that don't agree with me politically in my family. That they did not like reach out to check on how me, my family, our neighborhood is doing, as they're, I'm assuming, getting similar news stories about people being murdered in the street. So I think I have spent a lot of energy, very candidly, having to let those people go, having to say my energy right now is not speaking to them. It is speaking to people who care and want to know how to get more involved. And so if you are compelled to like talk to people that are, I mean, you mentioned like people that are seeing like right-wing influencers, and I don't know what they're doing with that information, like probably disagreeing with it. But if you're like, I would just encourage people to pay attention to the finite amount of energy that they have. And what are things that you can participate in that renew your energy, that renew your love for humanity. And if it's arguing with conservatives on the internet, more power to you. That's not how that bums me all the way out.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's very motivating. And I don't think it actually is effective. And I actually don't think that's what we need to do to win. Like, I learned this years ago from Andre Henry about the 3.5% resistance measurement, that in any resistance movement, if you get 3.5% of the population
Change happens.
to be coordinated, that is how movements happen. And so I am very much more interested in spending my time making sure that people aren't throwing themselves pity part. I don't mean to sound so like, I don't know how I sound, but I get it. I get that there is a real, taking stock of what am I doing and am I doing enough? And I think that is good. I'm doing that constantly. But what I'm really trying to make sure that I shift over to is, if I don't feel like I'm doing enough, like, what's something that I can just do right now? What's one small thing to just get myself out of the, like, I'm not doing enough kind of tornado spin.
Right.
And so that's all I mean by that, of please do something small. Like, sharing a post is not nothing. Giving $10 to a mutual aid fund is not nothing. Like, there's so figuring out what's happening in your own community. Like, what I feel like I keep hearing about is people being like, oh my gosh, I don't know my neighbors and I live, in Madison, or I live like somewhere else. Like, take time to sow those seeds now of getting to know, like, are there a couple people on your block that you could form a signal group with in case like, there's ways to do it that aren't like, it's not going to just stay in Minnesota, as we know.
Right. Yeah.
So how do you glean from what has really been effective here and try to sow those seeds now before it's like in your face?
Yeah. I think all of those messages are very, very well said, and I think very necessary for people just that do see things. We all carry these rectangles in our pockets, and we see horrors on them every day. And then it does make you sort of feel a bit of like functional freeze, or like all of those things that you mentioned. And that if you have an ounce of empathy and you see something horrific happening, you're going to be affected by that. But I think that your message of what has the resilience of the Minneapolis area citizens and residents who care about fellow residents, fellow human beings, regardless of whatever citi- whatever status they are. They're human beings. They don't need a status to deserve dignity. So to hear all of those things is encouraging, and I appreciate you sharing your experience, and that's precisely why I wanted to just have an opportunity for you to share some of what you're doing, because I mean you're not denying that there's these things are happening everywhere, like these things, but we have more power than we think we do. We have more opportunity, and we don't have to solve everything. I like maybe that's the other side of the coin of of expecting a savior, is that when they don't come around, you think you have to be the sole savior, and when you can't rise to that because you don't have the power of a god, then you feel like you're not doing enough, like you said. But it's I'm very encouraged to even know that you're seeing that sort of commitment from your neighbors, from your community members, that you and your husband are doing what you can. That's great, and I hope that someone hears that, sees this, and feels that same sort of courage and encouragement, because as you said, it's contagious.
Yeah. I think even, thank you for saying all that. I think even, so I live in St. Paul, which is across the river from Minneapolis. It's very close. I get there very quickly. We can bike. It's like a 5-minute drive to get to Minneapolis from where I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, when you asked me to come on today, I was even like, well, I'm not qualified. I live in St. Paul. So even yes, I'm doing these things, but I haven't seen ice the way I'm even seeing it on my phones, And there is almost this I don't know what it, I promise I'm not turning this into a therapy session, but just, I think I had therapy yesterday. I'm fine. But I think there is a weird, I'm sure there are smart people studying this, and I'm sure there's probably already a term for it, of what do you do when you see terrible things happening, but it feels far away because it's on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is this what's mine to do kind of question that a lot of people have, or something. And so, yeah, I don't know. I just, yeah, I don't really know if I have a thought, but I just, you have permission to care about what's happening in Minneapolis, even if you don't live in Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
And you have permission to, you don't have to be here. I can tell you, yeah, I think this is where my mind was going. Well, what I keep wanting, again, I don't do that much driving. I drive 4 minutes to Trader Joe's. That's about it. My window is very small here. I cannot drive down the street on any single day without seeing some level of resistance to ice. I just can't. My 4-minute drive to Trader Joe's, I will guarantee see, I don't know, 100 anti-ice signs, minimum. I will see there's a dual language daycare that's on the street that I drive down. I have wanted so many times to film these people because they are standing out all hours while this daycare is open in the snow. It's freezing. They are just standing there. I think sometimes we think that being an activist is responding to the bad. And I think what is reframing me is watching people respond to the bad, which they can't control, but they can control how they step up and make things good.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think maybe that's what I want people to like be inspired by, or to reframe that, like, it's not just about squashing bad, it's about creating more good. Like, I keep wondering, well, maybe this is the way we always need to, like, maybe we always need to have parents outside schools welcoming vulnerable kids, or maybe there's so much community care that is coming out of this that is actually the way it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And not because we're being invaded, but because this is like what being a good neighbor looks like.
Yeah.
And so I'm so drawn to like imagining that kind of a resistance work,
Mm-hmm.
that it's like proactive as opposed to just reactive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm hoping we're getting our like proactive muscles. Like, I'm definitely seeing that. It's not just like fuck ICE. It
Mm-hmm.
is that, but it's also like we stand with our immigrant neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so, and like, we keep us safe. Like, we have that sign in our front window in our house, is we keep each other safe. And so how do you need to do that? Like, can be really creative, or it can be as simple as sending some money. I will never like, money matters. Sending resources to people that cannot pay their rent matters.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just writing a check. Like, so do people write checks anymore? It's not just sending.
Yeah.
My elder
Yeah.
millennial. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's I think that's what I keep mulling over. Is there, like anything of being a human, it's really hard to land on one feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just holding in one hand just pure rage, and in the other hand it's like pure love.
Mm.
And so maybe figure out what you're holding, you know. You don't need to land. You can hold two things at once, to turn this really into my therapy session.
No, I think that's a great note to sort of tie things up on, because
Mhm.
because I mean, no single conversation is going to encapsulate everything, solve everything, nothing like that. But this does shine a light on what you've seen, what you've seen happen in your community. I believe you have a link in your bio for various numbers of mutual aid organizations and others.
Mhm.
And I'll make sure to link those in all the various show notes locations where this will be published. I don't know if there's any other any particular organization you want to mention on air, as it were, but that I'm very, very thankful that I got the chance to catch up with you and hear what life continues to be like, because as you highlighted in your video, the eye has sort of moved on. The reality TV producers are trying
Mhm.
to get us, focused on things that keep us from questioning things like the Epstein files and all sorts of other stuff.
Yes.
There's lots going on, but that your communities are still being impacted, and there's still ways for other people to help regardless of where they are, and also to learn about what's happening in their own backyards as well. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining me today, and for sharing what you've been experiencing.
Yeah. No, thanks, Blake. It is hard to, I mean, that was like a long conversation. How do you put that into without actually being here, which I think is what you're seeing a lot of people that do come that are traveling is they are experiencing that both of the like, wait, this is so wild and vile. And also look at this like resistance. Like it really is kind of overwhelming in both ways. And maybe that's the way. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, this has been, I really appreciate you inviting me on and letting me talk about this community that I have fallen in love with as a non-Minnesota native. But it just shows you the power of, to quote my mom, nothing is wasted. So I can't underline enough, like, we wouldn't be here without all the organizers and activists and people that have been doing so much of like community care work for years and years and years. I really think it was their mobilization that has us being as ready as we've been, as there's been so many ways it's been overwhelming in ways to like sign up for things or do, like that doesn't just happen. And so I'm really bittersweetly grateful for all the events that have happened historically in this state that have made people be this ready. But yeah, I think take heart. There are more of us than there are of them. And we just have to keep showing up.
Yeah. Ginny Booth Potter, thank you so much for joining today.
Yeah. Thanks, Blake.